and welcome to Blue Blood Nations, the podcast that is both entertaining and informative. I'm your host, Mr. Williams. Today I have the pleasure of spending time with Miss Vohar, school counselor at Potomac Senior High School. Hello there, Miss Vohar.
Hi, Mr. Williams. How are you?
I am doing well. I thank you for taking the time out to share with the nation a little bit about mental health. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Miss Vohar?
Sure. Um, Outside of school, because obviously I'm a school counselor here at Potomac, outside of school, I am married and I do have a 2.5-year-old daughter that keeps me on my toes. And I also have my LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor certification, which means that I am a private practice therapist outside of school. I do that part-time. And I work evenings and weekends predominantly with teenagers and young adults through a private practice. And other than that, I really just kind of enjoy reading, relaxing, spending time watching reruns, that just kind of some comfort shows.
Excellent. Now, I don't think many people know that you actually are married and have a child, and I could vouch that she's a little cutie. Why become a counselor?
Ooh, so good question. And I feel like we're asked this a lot during like interview questions when you're trying to get a job. So the reason why behind I became a school counselor was really because I was fortunate enough to have an amazing high school counselor myself. I went to school. I'm from originally Scranton, PA. So if you're a fan of The Office, that's where I was born and raised. And I went to West Scranton High School, and I had an amazing school counselor that. If his door was open, I was able to be in there, and I was in there a lot. So I was a frequent flyer of my counseling in counselor's office, and so it really resonated with me about having somebody that saw me not just as a problem in high school, but as somebody that, he supported me, he was there for me. And I really wanted to be that for other people. And it's funny because actually in my high school yearbook, there's predictions like where would you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I actually put down a therapist. So it's interesting that I ended up in this field of, where I said I was going to be, but really why I became a school counselor directly goes back to my school counselor in high school.
Incredible. Well, you use two terms.
Mhm.
You use counseling and you use therapist.
Mhm.
Is there a difference between the two?
Sure. So that's an awesome question. And I think, people often get confused between the two. And so here as a high school counselor, there's this academic piece that we focus on, there's the college and career piece, and then there's the social emotional piece. And in the school setting, we do focus heavily on the academic piece because our job is to help students kind of get through 12th to 12th grade. However, outside of here, there's definitely a clinical piece and a diagnosing piece that happens. So I think that the biggest difference between a high school counselor or just school counselors in general and therapists is really that diagnosing piece. So we are using, assessments and inventories. We are getting feedback from your family. We're getting feedback from you. And based on some of your symptoms and those assessments, we give you a diagnosis. We also use something called the DSM, the Diagnostical Statistic Manual, to look at your symptoms and based off of that, give you a diagnosis. And then also for therapy, it's a little bit more long term versus in a school setting. We try to work with students here and there, but it's more short term counseling. You really, you're not. We don't want you out of class, so it looks a little bit different versus outside of school where I would be meeting with clients probably about 45 minutes to 60 minutes once a week. And so the clinical piece, the diagnosing piece are pretty much the biggest differences that I can see. So I don't give out medication outside of school, as most therapists do not. That's something that a psychiatrist or a psychologist would do. But a therapist is someone that you would sit and have those conversations with, and I can diagnose as well.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for that. The term mental health.
Mhm.
being that you are in, sounds like two realms
Yep.
of counseling and therapy, it seems that that term gets thrown out around a lot these days, but there's not a real understanding as to what that looks like, what it means. Could you open that up to us a little bit as to explaining mental health?
Sure. So, I was thinking about this question a lot. And so your mental health really has to do with your mental and emotional wellness. So how well are you functioning for where you are in life? So as a high school student, if your mental health was struggling, maybe you aren't able to get out of bed most days and you can't attend school. And that's something you should be doing at this, at this age. You don't have many interests. You're not hanging out with your friends as much. So when it comes to your mental health, we're looking at your level of functioning and your emotional wellness. How are you coping with, maybe not doing well in a class or a breakup? So your mental health really has to do with the wellness of your emotions. So it's kind of confusing because when you think about it, we think about the brain, which yes, mental health does have to do with the brain as far as like connections and parts of your brain being developed, not developed, how fast you respond to things. But for me, the biggest thing, the part that we look at a lot is the emotional wellness and how well you're coping. And so, the level of functioning is really important when you think about your mental health, is where you should be at for developmentally for your age and what's going on at that time, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yes, very much so. And I would hope that some of our audience are adults as well. And so mental health for them, of course, will look different. Uh,
Right. So, if, it's holding down a job, it's, being able still getting up every day, are you interacting with others? Your level of functioning is different, obviously, than like a high school student's. But I mean, also, if how you react to certain things throughout the day. So you're driving to work and somebody pulls out in front of you, is your reaction to take a deep breath and just be like, oh, it's not a big deal. They must have somewhere more important to go. Or is your reaction to like try to speed up to get to them? Like, how are you reacting to the everyday things that are happening in your life that are how you react appropriately or not. So that's how for me you would be gauging your mental health, how you react to things, whether you're a high school student or whether you're an adult. Mhm.
mm, okay, good. Well, with that being said, as we are getting closer to the holiday season, the winter season, tend to hear how people become more and more depressed or tend to have the dark cloud that uh, overwhelms them. As a counselor and therapist, what would you suggest people do around this time of year to overcome or manage their mental health, the depression, the darkness that they're dealing with?
Right. So this is a great question. And I think um, acknowledging it is so important and is just kind of the first step here. So I had shared with a student last week that I was so excited for Christmas music because I am one of those people who like November 1st. I'm so ready to turn on the Christmas music, and my husband is like not until after Thanksgiving. So we differ in that way. And so normally as soon as I turn that music on, I'm feeling like really joyful and happy and excited for the holidays. And this is the first year, and maybe it's because of everything going on in the world, that when I turned on the music this year on November 1st, I really was not kind of feeling excited or feeling that joy. And so it's kind of checking in with yourself and trying to figure out, asking yourself what's going on. I think about, giving yourself some grace and space. I don't remember where I heard that throughout, my therapeutic career, but just, taking some time out for myself. This Sunday this week, I went out with, my husband and my daughter. We went to a park. We, took pictures of nature. We just really kind of were very mindful and in the moment and trying to take some time for myself and allow myself some grace in these times of, so much stuff going on in the world that's unprecedented, to just kind of reflect on what is it that makes me happy, and spending time with my family and my friends are things that make you happy, that make me happy. So I think if you're kind of feeling down with the holidays coming up, taking some time to reflect on why, I think you need to acknowledge it, kind of acting like we're fine leads to hesitancy to lead to more problems. But I think, really trying to focus on what's going on with yourself, reflecting, and doing more of that. I just read something over the weekend about, when you're feeling overwhelmed or sad, about, you know, almost like becoming more boring. So simplifying things in your life. And that's what I just keep thinking about is trying to simplify things. So I think the holidays are overwhelming for a lot of people for multiple reasons. I think we need to acknowledge that. We need to kind of be supportive of one another. Um, yeah, I don't know. The holidays are weird. Not everybody has the picture perfect Hallmark family, and I think it can be stressful. It's a time of like, with the expectation as far as finances. And so I think really trying to sit back and remember what matters. I think the holidays are a huge time. I don't know about for you, Mr. Williams, but for me, of reflection. As soon as this time of year hits, I often think about like, what did I accomplish? What did I do? And so sometimes I just have to kind of make that question smaller and think like, did I do anything good this year? And what that means to me is different every year. What that might mean to you as a listener might be different, but did I do anything that made me feel good or helped others? And if I can answer that question with a yes, then I try to remind myself that I had a good year. So a lot of reflection around this time of year is what I would tell people who are struggling. And then again, grace and space for yourself. So
Excellent. And I would imagine if you get to this point of the year and you reflect back and you haven't reached that goal, like you said, give yourself grace instead of beating yourself up about not reaching it. Well, what did I learn about it? What do I need to change? What do I want to do differently so I'm not in that place again? For the rest of the year, for those who are dealing with certain things right now, like we as we get to the holidays, could you share with our listeners, say, two or three skills to use throughout the year so that it's not all just coming down at one time?
sure.
Make life more manageable.
Sure. So
Mentally.
I'm going to tell you that coping strategies are not a one size fits all. I hear from students all the time, oh, counting or taking deep breaths, like that doesn't work for me. And you do need to kind of test out different healthy coping strategies for yourself to see what does work for you. I oftentimes think that some people don't realize they are using coping strategies when they do them. So, kind of, taking a moment to listen to your favorite song or, taking those deep breaths. Spending time with friends, coloring. If again, I'm not a big adult coloring book thing, but I like little kid coloring. To take some time out for myself during that time. So you really need to more like personalize your coping strategies, healthy coping strategies. I feel like as adults and even as kids, we do have a tendency to learn those unhealthy coping strategies that are maybe not safe or not good for us. And of course, they're an easy, quick fix, but the problem is there when, after the event is over or whatever you're using in order to kind of help aid what you're feeling. And so I think really trying to figure out what is working best. So for me, for example, I definitely use deep breathing. That's something I know that works for me. I take some really deep breaths. I used to work at the elementary level for years prior to coming up to the high school. And so I used to always tell students to smell the flowers and blow out your birthday candles. And so if you remember anything from the podcast, it's that. So pretend somebody just bought you the most beautiful bouquet of flowers and you're breathing them in, or you're in a field, wherever that might be for you, and taking that deep breath and then blowing out your birthday candle. So really kind of taking that deep breath in and then out. So you should be able to hear that. And it actually scientifically slows your heart rate down. So definitely something that I would suggest trying. Um, like I said, I do use coloring when I'm super stressed. Sometimes I will journal. That works for me. But listening to a music that I know will, hype me up. If you have anything like Spotify or Pandora or Apple Music where you're able to make playlists, I often suggest to clients like, hey, create a happy playlist for yourself, create a relaxing playlist for yourself. So those songs are there at the ready when you're kind of feeling down to use. And then again, making sure that I know who my people are that are going to be there to support me. That if I need at some time to say like, hey, I'm feeling really down, or I'm on the struggle bus this week, like how, is there anything, you know, that I need from them, or what can I say to reach out for help. And so I think just some of those things, but really you need to personalize this for yourself. I tell clients this, I tell students this all the time. What works for me might not work for you. We do have students here who, go to church with their families. I tell them, read scripture or keep a favorite scripture, piece with you all the time. I'm very big into affirmations. And so, or things that kind of make me happy or silly and laugh. And so I used to always be on my computer. I haven't had it here, but I had a picture of Kermit the Frog doing yoga, which is funny in itself. If you don't know who Kermit the Frog is and you're a high school student, look him up. And he's doing yoga, and it says, do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. And so I always try to keep that as a mantra to remind myself. So again, like, it could be song lyrics, it could be a joke, it could be an affirmation, it could be scripture. That's going to kind of bring you back when you're starting to go down that rabbit hole of feeling sad. So lots of different things you can do. If you are struggling, this holiday season or this school year, it's so important that you reach out for help, whether that be your school counselor, another trusted adult in the building, a parent to get you helps to find a therapist outside of school. Just know that you're not alone and that we value you here at Potomac.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Well, have come to the end. Is there anything you want to share? Any last words?
I don't think so. I mean, other than, I really love being a high school counselor, and I think, teenagers are probably the best group of students to work with. This age group is just, I don't know, it's just my favorite. So I just really want to encourage you guys, if you're listening, to come down and meet with your counselor if you're ever struggling. It's one of the hardest things to hear for students, for me anyway, and I don't know if it is for you, Mr. Williams, when students will say that they felt like they didn't have anybody to talk to or they didn't know what to do. And here we are down here willing and ready to help. So if you end up listening to this podcast and you are struggling at all, please reach out to your school counselor. And if it's after school hours, you can dial 988 or text 988 to be able to get some help for your mental health.
Well, thank you. In closing, I would like to ask you a personal question. Where's your happy place?
So interesting, because when I was younger, there was a part of my yard that was kind of like off to the side and fenced in. And I used to always go over there and pretend like it was like my own house and my own big separate yard, which is so silly. But I don't, that place I think of often, but then of course it's the beach. And it looked different for me this year because of my daughter being a toddler, so it wasn't as relaxing as normal. But gosh, just even like I took video when we were there, just like from the balcony one morning when nobody was up, of just like the waves crashing. And I think again, that's we talk about interventions or strategies of some grounding techniques of taking a 60-second vacation and pretending I'm there, pretending I can hear the waves, feel the heat, feel the sand. So yeah, definitely the beach. What about yours, Mr. Williams?
The woods. Actually, yesterday, that's where I was. Whether it's at a waterfall, at a stream, or just walking a path, camping, whatever it is, driving through it. If I'm in the woods, then I'm happy. That's my place. Just like you, it's quiet. You're amongst nature. It's beautiful. So, yeah, that's my comment.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And as we close, remember, if you want to be your best, you got to be willing to listen. Until next time, this is Blue Blood Nation.